The first step to monetizing is getting more eyes on your podcast or your business.
Because now through SEO, repurposed content, social media, your brand and podcast are being put in front of their niche audience, which happens to be your ideal target market.
You don't want to just be on any show.
Why is being a guest on podcasts such a powerful lead generation strategy for business owners and personal brands?
So the reason I really like podcast guesting is because there's really something about
how do you identify the right shows to be guests on that will actually lead to growth and business leads, not just exposure?
If you can find a way to kind of personally relate to them, you're more likely to get them to say yes and have you on the show.
Hello, I'm Jen, and welcome to another episode of the Lead Gen podcast. I'm so excited for my guest today, Marcy Page. Today, Marcy is going to share with us everything on how to optimize guesting when it comes to the podcasting world. But first, Marcy, welcome to the show. If you could just introduce yourself to my audience of business owners and personal brands, that would be great.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer, for having me on. So I have been a podcast manager for about the last 6 years. And one of the things that a lot of my clients want to know is how to monetize their podcast. And so, the first step to monetizing is getting more eyes on your podcast or your business. And so I've started kind of teaching how to be a guest on other shows.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's such like a key component in growth, strategy, brand building, and of course, the overall monetization of what they're looking for. And going off on the guesting spiral here, I have one business guesting growth strategy that I use time and time again. I call it the WOW strategy, WOW, where others watch. This method focuses on bringing niche-specific guests who already have an audience aligned with the market you're trying to reach. It's a win-win. Your guest gets positioned as an industry expert on your show. And I always create plenty of repurposed social media content to highlight them and promote them. And it's a win for you as the podcaster because now through SEO, repurposed content, social media, your brand and podcast are being put in front of their niche audience, which happens to be your ideal target market. Given that you're much better than me building out guest strategies to grow your podcast, and building your brand to generate leads through guesting, what are some of your favorite guesting strategies?
So one of the things that I like to share with my clients is that you don't want to just be on any show. So similar to you, you're bringing people on who are kind of in your same niche. I usually try and say, find shows that are very complementary, not necessarily doing the exact same thing as you, but you want to have the same audience. So sometimes I'll have a client who might say, my guesting strategy isn't really working. I'm not getting people from the show to my website or kind of more eyes on my own things. And it might be because you're just, getting on the wrong show and talking to the wrong audience. So what I like to tell clients is to first decide on the topics that you want to talk about, but also know your goal. Like, do you want to promote a book? Do you want to book more one-to-one guests? Do you want to sell your product? That's going to also play into, the type of shows that you're going to be on, in addition to the topics that you've chosen to pitch to these shows to be on. So once you kind of nail down those two things, I think those are the two key factors that you really need is the right topics to talk about and the right shows to guest on. And then that strategy really will work really well for you for getting more eyes onto your stuff.
Yes, that's so good. And making sure that you have your end goals in mind, because sometimes you could catch yourself doing things thinking you're doing this strategy and you're like, wait, this was my goal. Why am I doing it this way? We should be doing it this way. So that's a really, really good point. On my show, I'm constantly giving my audience of business owners and personal brands growth strategies after growth strategy. Why is being a guest on podcasts such a powerful lead generation strategy for business owners and personal brands?
So the reason I really like podcast guesting is because there's really something about somebody listening to you opposed to just maybe seeing an ad or something on Instagram where they really don't get to know you as well. So when they get to hear you speak, they're going to really connect with something, whether it's your story, your teaching style. They really get to know you a little bit more in terms of like what they're able to learn from you. And so I think it's just one of the best ways to really allow people to get to know you very quickly. And by being a guest on another show, if they already have an established audience, you can really reach a really wide audience very quickly. And most podcast hosts don't charge to be a guest, so it's a free way to get, some marketing done.
Yeah, no, for sure. All that strategy is perfect. I love that. We're in 2025. There's only a couple million podcasts out there. And not even that, there is a podcast for everything and anything. I always say there's probably a podcast on utensils out there. You could probably find it. How do you identify the right shows to be guests on that will actually lead to growth and business leads, not just exposure?
So once I have decided on my topics, then I might even look at other industry professionals in my niche and kind of see where are they being a guest on a show. That's a kind of a quick way to kind of find shows, because you're right, there's so many of them, and it's impossible to find them all. And even doing a search in your podcast or online, you're probably only going to bring up a few options. So you really want to take advantage of all the different ways. Like if I know that someone else in my same niche is already doing a lot of guest shows, I might go see what are they talking about, which shows are they on, can I talk about a different spin on that topic that they've already shared. And then maybe once you've been a guest on a few shows, you can start asking for recommendations. Like once you're done with your interview, say, do you know of any other shows who would like to have me on as a guest? I'd love for you to provide me with a referral. So that's a really good way to start, I think.
Yeah, no, I love that. Really finding someone who's in your niche that you have a similarity with, someone who might be a little above you, a little further than you on the journey, and kind of optimizing your strategy because they've been that path. You might as well just optimize it and leverage it. In my own mailbox, I get pitched all day to have guests on. I'm sure you do as well. And a lot of it blends in and sounds the same after a while. All those emails, the structure sounds very, very similar. What is your top tip for pitching yourself in a way that stands out, gets you booked consistently on shows that actually make sense?
So I try to find a way to connect with the host and really customize your pitch. So it's a really good idea. If you think the show is a good fit, go listen to a couple episodes, go find them on Instagram or somewhere to kind of see what they're kind of about and get to know them. Really find something that you can connect with them in. Like you can say, I really liked when you talked about XYZ because I really relate to your podcast, because if you can find a way to kind of personally relate to them, you're more likely to get them to say yes and have you on the show.
Yeah, no, for sure. Get really customizable. Check out their content. Make sure it makes sense going back to that optimization with your time and shows that you're actually looking to go on. Marcy, this was great. I really feel my audience can leverage all of this for their businesses and personal brands. I want to thank you so much for coming on to the Lead Gen podcast. Where can my audience find you and follow your journey?
So you can find me on my website, marcypage.com, and then on Instagram, Marcy D Page.
Got it. Marcy D Page. So good. Once again, Marcy, thank you so much for coming on the show.
No, thank you so much for having me.